The courtroom is silent, but the silence feels loud, heavy, like history itself is holding its breath. Cameras flash outside. Protesters shout from both sides of the street. And inside, under bright white lights, the Prime Minister of Canada sits at the defense table, not as the most powerful leader in the country, but as a man on trial. This is not a drill. This is not politics as usual. It is a moment that could change Canada forever. Stay with me. Because what happens in this courtroom could decide who really holds power in a democracy. The people. Or the politicians who promise to serve them. Before we go deeper, if you're into high-stakes political drama that feels almost too real, make sure you hit like and subscribe right now. On Viral Clashes Canada, we break down intense fictional showdowns inspired by the real tensions shaping the country. And trust me, this one might be our biggest yet. The judge enters, and everyone rises. You can hear the shuffle of shoes, the creak of wooden benches, the quiet hum of reporters typing already. The Prime Minister looks calm on the outside, but his jaw is tight. Across the room, the lead prosecutor stands, a stack of files in hand, representing not a political party, but the people of Canada. The charge is simple to say, but explosive in meaning: abuse of power for political gain. The accusation is that decisions made behind closed doors didn't just bend the rules, they twisted the system itself. Outside the courthouse, two different crowds chant to different stories. One side says this trial is justice, proof that no one is above the law. The other says it's a political witch hunt, an attack on democracy disguised as accountability. Social media is on fire, families are arguing at dinner tables, friends are unfollowing each other. Canada isn't just watching a trial, it's watching itself in the mirror. Inside, the prosecutor begins. He doesn't shout. He doesn't need to. He talks about secret meetings, pressure on independent agencies, and decisions that somehow always seem to benefit the Prime Minister's allies while hurting his critics. He lays out a timeline that feels less like coincidence and more like a pattern. Emails, phone records, testimonies from former insiders who say they were told to make it happen no matter what the rules said. The defense stands slowly, calm, confident. They argue that leadership is messy, that tough decisions always create enemies, and that every action taken was legal, even if it was unpopular. They say this trial is fueled by politics, not facts. They remind the jury that voters, not courts, usually judge leaders. They paint the Prime Minister as a target, not a villain. And sitting there, listening to both sides, is a jury made up of ordinary Canadians, a nurse, a mechanic, a small business owner. People who never thought they'd be deciding the fate of a national leader. Their faces are serious. Some avoid looking at the Prime Minister. Others glance at him, maybe wondering how someone with so much power could end up in a chair that usually belongs to regular citizens. As the trial unfolds, witnesses take the stand. A former advisor admits there was unspoken pressure to speed up approvals for certain projects. A civil servant describes being sidelined after raising concerns. Then comes a surprise witness, a longtime supporter of the Prime Minister who says he started to worry when loyalty seemed more important than the law. Every testimony adds another piece to a puzzle that's starting to look uncomfortable. But the defense fires back hard. They show documents that suggest the decisions were within legal boundaries. They question the motives of witnesses, pointing out promotions they didn't get, grudges they might hold. They argue that governing a country is not the same as running a small office. Big choices affect millions, and sometimes there is no perfect option. Meanwhile, the country is split in two realities. In one, the Prime Minister is a symbol of corruption finally being challenged. In the other, he's a leader being dragged through the mud by opponents who couldn't beat him at the ballot box. News channels replay every facial expression, every pause, every whisper between lawyers. Memes flood the internet. Hashtags trend worldwide. Canada, usually known for calm politics, suddenly feels like the center of a global storm. Then comes the moment that shifts everything. The prosecution plays an audio recording. The courtroom goes still. A voice alleged to be the Prime Minister's is heard telling an aide to handle the situation and make sure a certain investigation doesn't become a problem. The words are vague, but the tone is not. It sounds less like advice and more like an order. The defense immediately objects. They question the recording's context, the editing, the legality of how it was obtained. The judge allows it, but reminds the jury to consider all possibilities. Still, the air in the room changes. Even people who believed strongly in the Prime Minister feel a flicker of doubt. Not certainty, not guilt, but doubt. As days pass, the emotional weight grows. The Prime Minister's family is seen entering the courthouse, trying to avoid cameras. Supporters hold signs saying, "We still believe." Critics hold signs saying, "No one above the law." Police form lines to keep the two groups apart. It's peaceful, but tense, like a country balancing on a thin wire. In his own testimony, the Prime Minister finally speaks. He says every decision he made was to protect the country's economy, security, and stability. He says leadership sometimes means choosing the least bad option, not the perfect one. He denies ever ordering anyone to break the law. He looks directly at the jury and says, "I serve the people of Canada to the best of my ability. History can judge my policies, but I am not a criminal." It's a powerful moment. Some jurors nod slightly. Others keep their faces unreadable. The prosecutor's cross-examination is sharp. He asks why certain officials were replaced right after disagreements. He asks why warnings from experts were ignored. He asks whether protecting the country also included protecting a political career. Questions hang in the air long after they're asked. As closing arguments begin, the courtroom feels smaller, like the walls themselves are leaning in to listen. The prosecutor tells the jury this case is not about politics, but about limits. He says democracy only works if even the most powerful people answer to the law. He asks the jurors to imagine what message it sends if a prime minister can quietly pressure systems meant to be independent. The defense responds by warning about the future. They say convicting a leader over decisions made in complex situations could scare future leaders from taking bold action. They say not every bad outcome is a crime. They ask the jury to remember doubt, reasonable doubt, and not let emotion decide. Now the jury leaves the room. Canada waits. News anchors fill time with analysis. Experts debate legal definitions. Ordinary people refresh their phones again and again. In living rooms, bars, and buses, one question keeps coming up. What kind of country do we want to be? Hours pass. Then the jury returns. No music, no dramatic speech, just footsteps and heartbeats. The verdict is read. And in that moment, no matter which side anyone was on, one truth becomes clear. Democracy is not just about voting every few years. It's about constant tension between power and accountability. It's about asking hard questions, even when the answers are uncomfortable. The Prime Minister's political future changes in seconds, but something bigger changes too. Canadians start talking more seriously about transparency, limits on power, and how to protect institutions from pressure, no matter who is in charge. Trust, once shaken, becomes the most valuable thing in politics. As the courtroom empties and the cameras fade, the story doesn't really end. It moves into Parliament, into elections, into conversations at kitchen tables. Because the real trial was never just about one leader. It was about the system, the safeguards, and the people who have to decide what they're willing to accept. And now I want to hear from you. Do you think putting a prime minister on trial strengthens democracy, or risks turning courts into political battlefields? Drop your thoughts in the comments because this debate is bigger than one verdict. If this story pulled you in and made you think, share it with someone who sees politics differently than you do. Let's get real conversations going, and if you haven't already, stick with Viral Clashes. Canada for more intense political showdowns where the stakes feel real and the future is always on the line.